cancel this. So I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then we can move on to our talk and pop some questions. And also, well, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Camila Yam. I'm the editor of FFW, and here I also represent BRIF, Brazil Immersive Fashion Week, the first Latin American platform for immersive fashion that connects artists and designers in an open source space to fashion and technology experimentation. And FFW is a media partner of BRIF, and we bring a lot of content about immersive technology applied to fashion in partnership with the BRIF team. And today we talk with these amazing people from Immersive Kind, a global multidisciplinary collective who explore tomorrow that's inclusive and sustainable through art and tech. This meeting is a part of a series of warm-ups with artists and groups that are already working with digital narratives and thinking about this new future through art, fashion, and other realities. So you can join us in November for our first Fashion Week, Immersive Fashion Week, that will happen from the 2nd to 7th of November, and with an international lineup of designers, from all around the world. So this panel will also be soon be posted on YouTube with Portuguese subtitles for those of you who cannot catch up in English. And we brought Lucy and Lochi. We were already talking with Lucy and Kadeen, Lucy's partner at Immersive Kind. And it's amazing to have them here because they have a lot to talk about fashion sustainability and the construction of new futures and new realities. A lot to teach us also about it. And so I give you, Lucy, if you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit of your work, and also introduce, Lotte can introduce himself, and then we move on to the questions.
Thank you, Camilla. I'm Lucy. I'm the co-founder of the Immersive Kind, and I'm also an XR artist as well. So I'm also making digital art in the immersive space, and I've been working with Kadeen James, the founder of the Immersive Kind, for about 2 years now, and we've been making this global community that explore tomorrow, that's inclusive and sustainable through creative technology, art, fashion, and we really believe in nurturing a creative ecosystem that is of an interdisciplinary and global mindset. And we're currently collaborating with emerging talent from around the world who are creating new concepts with 21st century tools. As an XR agency, the Immersive Kind notices the fashion, technology, and design industries combined can support and influence meaningful change for our communities and planet. And we're really, really interested in developing this sustainable ecosystem for a digital world to coexist with the real world. The IRL and the URL is what people are saying at the moment in real life, and then the metaverse. So we're really interested in exploring how this new metaverse is going to develop. It's not existing yet. We know it's something that might exist in the future. This metaverse is this idea of the internet existing, this spatial internet existing alongside us, augmented reality, mixed reality, extended reality, and it functioning as an other verse, another world next to our real world. And this is something that you might not like the sound of, but naturally this is going to be developing and happening in our lifetimes as emerging artists and emerging designers. And the fashion industry is definitely one of the strong components as to bringing this into hopefully a safe place and inspiring future generations to create a safe place, as well as also working with the real world and protecting our planet. That's what we're really interested in with fashion, and we've been collaborating with emerging designers and emerging artists who foster these ideas in their art practices, design practices, futurist mindsets. And we've really been inspired by Lockie, from a recent graduate from Condé Nast, And I'm going to hand over to Lockie to introduce himself.
Yeah, as Lucy said, I just graduated from Condé Nast College. I've been working on creating digital content such as like Instagram filters and like augmented reality, working with a bunch of different brands and experimenting with that. And it's like, and also I made my own virtual fashion show called Fashion, which hints on the issues that the fashion industry is currently facing, especially with sustainability. As it like had before, it was a model walking over some melting ice, and that's kind of the representation of the physical sort of fashion show and the direction that we're heading if we don't make a change. And then here, I'll put it back on, and then you travel into a whole new world. Yeah, there is. And that's the like the metaverse and like the infinite possibilities that come from going digital and embracing it and not being afraid of actually going digital. Because for me personally, I think fashion is afraid of losing its fashion shows, but digital fashion shows don't need to replace them. They should just be an added value for the fashion industry. So that's why I am trying to like get across with this, and that's why I'm trying to push the digital side and the digital design, and then like also with the Instagram filters, it's an emerging sort of like always improving and like updating the software because it's like made on Spark AI, which is actually essentially very easy to make because they have like tutorials and templates. And now all these brands such as Burberry and Gucci, they're all embracing that now. And I've been probably doing this for like the past like year and a bit. So, but it's good to see that it's now something that they've identified as an emerging and necessary part of their, I don't know, promotion. So yeah, that's me and what I'm doing, kind of.
It's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like an incredible incredible work, incredible place to be at the moment, especially now where we were like with this coronavirus crisis and quarantine, you know, a lot of the fashion had to start this conversation with other realities. And I agree that they are afraid of losing fashion shows and the whole experience that being there can give us. But as we can see in your digital background, you know, it's amazing. It also has the power to catch our attention and make us want to dive in this art moving, you know, and digital art. So it's really incredible.
Yeah,
So,
I went to immersive. Like I would like digital fashion to be able to actually be like for people to actually accept it. I feel like it needs to be immersive and like needs to have that value that you get from the physical show. So if you can add that value and that sense of value, then who's to say that digital fashion shows can't be on equal terms as the physical ones?
and to start with my first question, one of the things that I think this immersive experience, and with all other kinds of realities, artificial, virtual, augmented, I think one of the main things that they can really help to make the fashion industry evolve is in terms of making it a more democratic, you know, and sustainable and conscious environment. So how do you think, to both of you, how can immersive reality can make the field of fashion more democratic, and especially when you're talking about regarding gender and race?
So the first thing that I find really inspiring about fashion technology is that it can touch into other industries. So that's already tapping into people who haven't necessarily thought fashion was their career path. But for example, a creative technologist, a coder, someone who's gone through a more technology route, they can go into fashion and start to open up more diverse voices in the fashion industry, which then gives obviously more of an open and larger perspective on fashion. Also, the other thing is it's it can become more global, so we can collaborate across countries, across borders, and find a lot of the time, one of the people that we've been working with the Immersive Kind, they collaborated for their final year project with someone in Puerto Rico, Romain Potier, and they worked with someone else from the other side of the world. That to me is democratizing fashion, because it explains that you can start to change the way it's not so linear anymore. It's more open for different networks, different groups of people to join in, challenge what's happening in the UK, challenge what's happening in America, challenge what's happening in Western fashion culture. Also some really liberating avatar work that's being made at the moment by genderless designers, and these people are challenging the way that what it means to be a digital human. And this is something that you may not be able to do in real life. It's something that you can't, having the ability to change and sculpt, it's a good on digital technologies such as Blender. You can really like start to reach again new audiences and teach people what's happening in the real world. Another thing also I'd like to note is that technology fashion, it's open source as well, which means it's not closed to the elite people with money. It's something that anyone, if they have a computer, can learn, and you can find all the resources you need on YouTube. That means it's a global tool, a global medium, and this obviously means that we can tackle issues such as Western culture dominating the fashion industry, and also that we're able to find new talent as well. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it does. Lucky, would you like to say anything about it?
Okay, yeah, to add on to that, yeah, I feel like digital fashion and digital fashion shows in general are more inclusive, because everyone in like modern society is connected or has access to the internet. And so just by being able to do that, it removes the exclusivity and that sort of like that you get from the physical shows. Because I've been to multiple physical shows, and like you can only fit so many people in a room, and everyone else doesn't really get the same access. But if it's a digital fashion show, regardless if it's like fully virtual by creating like virtual avatars, or if it's just filming and then editing a show, like it still gives you that ability to have control over what people see with the shows. Because I noticed with the physical shows, especially with the live streams on the Instagrams, they were more interested in showing like the personality, the people that were there. Like you wouldn't see the details of any of the clothing. You'd hardly get any close-ups. You'd see like one view and then another view that has obviously a celebrity in the background. So like that side of it is removed, and then that you suddenly get this focus on the clothing, which was the original purpose of the fashion show, instead of just having the personnel that was there. So you're removing that, and you're creating an equal experience for everyone, and everyone has access to the internet. So that's where I wanted to go. And additionally, when you start talking about that, Lucy, when you start talking about avatars, I want to go into the Instagram avatars that are only virtual. So like Shudu and like Lil Michaela, they actually have a higher like engagement rate than most other like physical influencers. So I think it's like 40% higher in their engagement rate. And they've got, I think Lil Michaela has like a couple million followers. So and she's not even real. The interesting thing about her is that everyone thought she was real because she was like posing with all these other celebrities. And then it was announced, oh yeah, she's not actually real. She's a fake avatar that was made. And it disrupted the whole sort of like industry, but people loved it, and that's why people engage with it so much. So yeah, that's
awesome. Yeah, but I think what you said about, you know, the fashion shows being broadcast on Instagram now, being made, you know, to be broadcast on YouTube or Instagram this year. I think one of the points that caught my attention is that, as you said, they were trying to reproduce, you know, the old vision of a broadcast of, you know, with celebrities. You know, there's so many details that they could focus on, and and that maybe the consumer or the viewer, the, you know, the follower could be interested and curious about what's going on backstage or with the designers and the whole process. There's a lot to show, and we keep seeing the same first row and celebrity profiles and celebrity who attended and who's wearing the brand. So I think there's a lot to evolve concerning the, you know, the major brands. But that leads us to my next question. Now, as I've, you know, learning from, you know, following you and talking to you, we see like these young people from all over the world experimenting with these new realities and creating, you know, new words, new forms of connection, of showing a designer or an artist's work. How do you think it's going to be when these big brands, you know, like, I don't know, like Gucci or Vuitton, they are finally in this, you know, with all their budget, all the budget they have, do you think they, in this reality we are talking about, they will still make it exclusive and less democratic? Are we going to repeat our real life as we know it? You know, all this, it's not democratic. It's not, you know, in any terms, not for genders, for race, for whatever. You know, you have to be white, you have to have money. So do you think when they are experiment with these other realities, they will still have this not democratic view? I don't know if you can understand my question.
I think I understand where you're going from, what you're getting at. So I feel like it's kind of their duty to sort of see the weaknesses and like what the issues that the current the industry is facing at the moment, and they should see digital as like an opportunity to sort of tackle those issues. So I think Bauman, they used a virtual model, which they collaborated with a digital design agency, and in like South Africa or South Korea, I think, and like that was like the only digital kind of only aspect that I saw within like the digital fashion shows throughout like the lockdown period. But I've spoken with the Fabricant, who are a digital only fashion brand, and they've got a lot of exciting projects coming up, and they're kind of leading this like forefront for like digital fashion and digital fashion design. They've collaborated with like Puma and a bunch of Adidas, a bunch of other brands, and it's exciting to see where they're going at. But the thing with digital fashion, you don't even need to have an avatar. So I'm for the Antwerp. So Antwerp couldn't have the actual fashion show. They're the masters. So for it, they actually made all of the clothes into a digital fashion show. And what was really interesting about it was that there were no models. They removed the models, and it was just the clothing that was being like, I don't know. It looked like a real show with the fabric moving exactly as it would, but there was no model. There was no like gender. It was just the clothing and how the clothing moved and interacted with the environment. So I felt that was a very interesting way of like going about it. And Hanifa did it as well for their digital fashion show. So if you remove a model, then that just removes that sort of, I don't know, the gender issue. But then that also places an issue on the modeling agencies and like the real models. So there are like sort of like negative sides to that. If you're removing the model from the fashion show, you're removing the model as like a necessity. And so that's putting all these people that rely on that as a career into harm. So
yeah, it's complex.
it's complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I think that with brands, we were talking about this in the Immersive Kind's recent online program, Future Fashion Consumption. And we were talking with our designers and our digital artists as well, who are making these leading the way for digital fashion. And we were talking about this idea of how the brands are going to work. How can we protect the people who are leading the way and creating what we're going to see and what we're going to experience? And I think that's really important to continue to nurture these ecosystems that are looking after the emerging digital artists, enabling collaboration with these other digital artists and empowering giving them voices and connecting them across different with our platform and with our XR agency, giving that opportunity for these digital creators to work together and create new narratives in the fashion industry. I think that's really important to have these spaces that are working with brands and then also working with the designers and having that balance. I think that it ties in also with democratizing fashion, is that we can start to shape up the couture houses with digital fashion, because you see this also in art institutions as well. Because of 2020, a lot of the countries shutting their institutions, their galleries, their museums, their shows, their events. New platforms are being created, and new brands, and this can open up for new opportunities as well. And the Immersive Kind are also really interested in this idea of blockchain as well, so giving the designer the opportunity to stamp their digital asset, which is also important, I think, with brands, because these new designers, new artists, when they make it, if you can put that on the blockchain, and especially as it will be a digital twin, you need to protect that data and say, this is the time that I made this piece of work, and then it will always be tracked. And if it comes up in a different place that you didn't know about, then we can make sure that that's safer.
Yeah, and he asks for full transparency in the fashion chain, right? We have an institute in Brazil called Alinha that takes women from slavery conditions. They mostly come from Bolivia, countries like Bolivia, and they are brought to Brazil to work in horrible conditions. And this girl from Alinha, she takes this woman out of these conditions, make their I don't know in English, they make the pieces,
sewing
garment. Yeah, exactly. They make the garments. So they rebuild their working place, make it a safe working environment, make them legal in a country and able to work in legal terms, and then they sell their works for other brands or designers, and it's all paid with blockchains. So they know exactly how much each woman are getting, and how many hours they're working, and who's buying, who's paying. And so it's incredible, and it changes the whole chain, the whole process. So they can operate legally and being pay a fair amount for their work. So
yeah, that's really important, and I think that's something that ties in with digitalization also in the fashion industry. I did some research the other day about how much the internet costs to run, and it is quite a large carbon footprint.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and it's about 4% of our greenhouse gases it produces, which is more than aeroplanes. This is quite interesting. However, the thing that's exciting about working in the digital for fashion is that we can start to track things like how the items have been produced, and also implement a more strategic plan for our circular economy, and start to work out the environmental crisis and close existing social gaps. So that's sort of the positive with working with digital fashion, is like being able to also monitor the how the internet is being run, obviously, because it's created with hardware, and then there's also where the data being stored, that sort of thing.
Now, Lucy and Lucky, like Lucy, I saw a video in a Immersive Kind Instagram profile about a circular living system where garments grow, decompose, and shape change throughout time and changing environment. So this sounds like a dream, like we humans in total connection with nature. But how real is it, and in large scale? Is it possible we will ever see this happening? This full respect for nature, for the environment, in large scale?
So that was Scarlett Young's work, I think, Central St Martin's graduate, that we had spoke at our event, and we're still talking with her about this topic. And we're also working with a bio designer called Chanel Malik, who's also talking about how we can live with nature. I think that's a big question, and I think we're really interested in exploring what nature and technology, what it can be together, because in reality those are the two big things that are important in our time at the moment: the climate emergency, and then also technological advancements. I know that our generation is definitely thinking about protecting the metaverse, and just making that a safe place for digital rights, and then also protecting the planet. In terms of it working, technology and nature working together, I think that technology is, if we go back, it doesn't necessarily have to be used digitally. It's something that it has always existed in the way that we've been making tools for a long time. We can definitely start to draw on like creating, working with these bio designers and seeing how we can create a circular economy with them. And I think that's really interesting, looking at as a conceptual piece also. It can really touch on people's experiences, and also we can see how these systems are being produced virtually. It can speed up time. We can see things that are going unnoticed in the real world. In the digital world, it can be sped up. We can see decay. We can see things that are happening in a faster way. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
No, I was going to, you're a teacher, and Lucky you recently graduated, right? Yeah. So our students in general, let's say in UK, right, where you live, are already thinking about this, uniting fashion with biodesign and working along with another talents, because you might be a designer, but to develop something, you might have to team up with biologists and engineers or other kind of professions. So our students, our fashion students in the UK already living like the fashion as we are talking about it here.
Yeah, I think collaboration is going to be very key to not just students, but everyone in fashion at the moment, especially, well, for students in particular. I feel like there is all these new technologies, and all these designers in all their different forms kind of will rely on each other to collaborate and create something that's more unique and different and new, because I feel like that's what the industry needs new. And everyone is always desiring new content, new things, like new experiences, new immersive things. I've been going back to your former question about nature and technology, I've been reading a lot into Martin Heidegger, who talks about being, das Sein, and how we, the beings, and technology and nature are all connected. We're all connected to each other, and how the essence of technology is not actually anything technical, but it's more about instrumentality, and it's not a means to an end, but it's actually a way of showing of reality, realness, truth, aletheia. Like it's a way of revealing. So at the moment, I'm working on a set of filters that is going to be using that questions concerning technology and nature, which is are going to be released in the next few weeks or so. So, but yeah, on the way of collaboration, like I'm collaborating with the Immersive Kind, although we're a digital agency. There's bio designers in there. It's a whole community that is not unique to just being digital, but just applying new practices for a sustainable future, which is, yeah, I'm glad to be a part.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think interdisciplinary is a really, really big thing in the Immersive Kind. It's really important that we are always open to different pathways and different mindsets. That's how we're going to tackle these big issues that are happening in the world. I think by always being open to other people's research, and students are definitely interested in that opportunity to be able to learn from the architect and the fashion designer. And we really need to be nurturing this in our future generations, because of the fact that the world isn't so linear anymore, and that people need to have the variety of skills as well, because we're not going to have just one career. And I think that's something that's a really important thing to talk about with students, and also with people who are all ages, to be continuously learning, a lifelong learner, and also to be committed to digital learning as well, because when in a few years' time the children now are learning to code, and so they're going to have a whole understanding of a language that I won't know. So it will be the same as this sort of, obviously I am learning coding now, but my generation don't necessarily have that ability to understand that language. So I think we really do want to push this idea of creative technology, and also this willingness to learn from other perspectives. Scientists, just because they've come from a path, potentially they didn't necessarily choose the path in art and science, in technology and maths. The way you've been brought up doesn't necessarily mean the person who you want to become in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. So yeah, and it's also really exciting to think about how these industries also can learn off of each other. I think that's a really important thing for connecting. Yeah,
we never can think that we know enough, right? It's never-ending learning process.
I found it really interesting that you start talking about coding and it being a language, because I'm starting a course at Central St. Martin's to do creative coding on Monday, because I see it as a necessity, especially in the work that I do. But I also see fashion as a language. So the mergers of two different languages together is a really interesting sort of like topic, and also a very interesting sort of like future, because I can see it happening, because I'm learning creative coding, how I can apply my digital design and creatively code at the same time to make something that's very different, unique and new. So it's going to be interesting to see how we progress with all of this, and especially I'm interested to see how I can progress with learning these two languages and combining them together. So
that's amazing. And well, my last question, I got this question also from one of the posts in Immersive Kind, and I thought it was a really good question to finish our chat, that both of you can answer. So how can we find a sense of place and belonging in the digital realm? Is it possible?
Lockie, do you want to go first?
So the question was, how can we find a sense of belonging? So I feel like, especially in the digital, you need to make it interactive, and so that the audience and the people that are there, so that they're engaging and they feel like they're part of this community, so that they want to be a part of the journey of this creation, because it's also new. If you feel like you have benefited to the creation of something that is going to potentially become a necessity to the fashion industry and other industries by going digital, then I feel like it means more to you personally, because you feel like you have helped this progress to what it has become. So by adding that sense of engagement and interactivity, like by creating, let's say, like a fashion show that you can log on to, and you can use your keyboard to control and walk around and communicate with likewise people who are interested in the same thing, and you can interact with all these different shows, like using your own avatar, which is personal to you. So I feel like then you feel like you have this sense of virtual belonging as well as a physical belonging, but then you have that value, like that sense of value that you would get by physically being somewhere, but through virtually being there. So I think that's an interesting way of going about it, which I want to be a part of. And that's why I'm learning to code, because I want that sort of feature. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think the first thing is, when I was thinking about this question, sense of place, the belonging in a sense of place is one thing, which we're all still wondering in the real world. How do you find a sense of place in the real world? But then in the digital world, obviously, it's more new. It's something that needs to be still discovered. I've spoken to quite a lot of artists, designers about this idea, and some of us have been thinking about social media and the voices that we project online, on the Instagram, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, may be very different to the way that we talk in real life on Zoom calls. So I think that you can have many senses of place in the digital world in a positive way, but there's also the worry that you might not be able to find your sense of place in the digital world because of the fact that it's a scary place. It's not necessarily a kind place. And I've also talked to people about these issues as well. How can you find a digital community? I think that's really important, which obviously we're doing with the Immersive Kind. That's something that, for me in 2020, I've found a sense of place in the digital world because I've been able to chat to so many people from around the world. I feel like I've traveled and learned so much about other people. And I think that's also some special thing about the digital world and finding your sense of place. But yeah, there's also these concerns. Obviously, I can't not say this, digital citizenship. How are we being tracked online? How much agency do we really have? How much education is going into people being taught about where they store their details online, what you want to tag on your images, but then also how you're feeding into these big tech companies. So if we're finding a sense of place online, we need to be aware of the fact that we're also contributing to these bigger systems that are a bit larger even than our countries, I think, because they're these things that are unmanaged. So there's many levels to this question. And we were also really interested in this idea of avatars as well, and how you can show your physical identity, but then also, again, through the way you communicate. Yeah.
Guys, it was incredible listening to you. I could spend hours just talking, and it's an incredible subject. It's a whole new world ahead of us, and I want to thank everyone who's been watching, and stay tuned for more talks from Brazil Immersive Fashion Week. And you can follow Lucy and Loki on Instagram. It's really worth it. It's an amazing content they do, amazing work. And I hope to talk to you guys in another opportunity soon. And thank you so much again for being with us. And well, we see each other in November again, right?
Yes.
In this digital world, and maybe in the near future.
Yes, we're really excited about that. We're really looking forward to coming along again, and yeah, it's really exciting to be collaborating with you, and we're really grateful to be talking to you all and sharing our thoughts. And I'd really love to hear what everyone thinks about it and to continue the conversations. And also please follow the Immersive Kind as well. We'd really like to connect and continue growing our community and learning, and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're into fashion, if you're into technology, if you're into saving the planet, or all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye bye, guys.